Get the views of the Liberal Democrats by speaking to the Treasury and Business spokesperson, Sarah Olney. Sarah Olney, afternoon to you. Thanks so much for making the time. Why don't we pick up on Sam's final point then there? Where does a Kemi Badenoch leadership take the Conservative Party, in your view?
Good afternoon, Kamali. And I'd just like to start by saying, obviously, all the Liberal Democrats warmly congratulate Kemi Badenoch on being elected leader of the Conservative Party. We think it's a great day that we've got the first black leader of a major political party in the UK. So we obviously warmly welcome her to her new role. But I think it's obviously going to be a really, really tough ride for Kemi Badenoch as the leader of the Conservative Party, and not least because the Liberal Democrats are now a major force again in Parliament, and we're finding that we are very much more a more effective opposition so far in this new Parliament than the Conservatives have been. They're very much held back by the fact that they are the architects of a lot of the mess that we find ourselves in. Their disastrous mismanagement of the economy, the trust mini budget, so many things that are going wrong in this country happened under their watch. It's going to be really difficult for Kemi Badenoch and the Conservatives to be, making ground against the Labour Party when so much of what has happened is their responsibility. But the Liberal Democrats, on the other hand, what we've seen this week is we have been calling throughout the general election campaign for increased spending on the NHS and social care, and we saw that delivered this week in the budget. The Chancellor credited Ed Davey, our leader, with her decision to increase carers allowance, and we've seen even just in the last few days a commitment to a proper plan for improving cancer care as a result of Liberal Democrat calls in Parliament. So the Liberal Democrats are really the ones who are taking the fight to Labour, and the Tories simply have no credibility.
I mean, are you taking the fight to Labour? Because it seems as if you're suggesting there that lots of the ideas that you guys have and the Labour Party have are the same. It sounds like this progressive alliance that people talked about for all those years, Sarah.
Not at all. I mean, we aim to be a constructive opposition, very much so. But I mean, there's no doubt that while there were things in this week's budget that we absolutely welcome, as I said, the increased spending on NHS and social care, we're really, really concerned by what we're hearing about what the impacts of this increase in employers' national insurance is going to be. And in particular, we haven't heard enough from the government on what they're going to do about social care. And the increase in employers' national insurance is going to have a devastating impact on those care companies, most of who operate in the private sector and won't get some of the increased money from the government to help them meet those costs. GPs we're hearing about in all of our constituencies who are going to really struggle. So that is something we're going to be fighting the government on. We've opposed them on winter fuel allowance. We're opposing the VAT on school fees. But as I say, we have so much more opportunity to take the fight to Labour on these issues than the Tories do, because, we're very much in a mess of the Tories making.
OK, but the point that you made about them not taking the fight to the Labour Party, they didn't have a leader, they had an interim leader. Now they've got the leader. We'll see in which direction Kemi Badenoch chooses to go. I don't know if you heard my conversation with Greg Cook, former Labour Party strategist, earlier, suggesting there's a lot of room to the right of the Labour Party. If the Tories were to move into that position, they'd start eating up Lib Dem votes, wouldn't they?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. I mean, Kemi Badenoch is very much, I think her history in the Conservative Party is very much somebody who's very much on the right of the Conservative Party. And a lot of what we've been hearing throughout this contest is about the need to attract voters back from the Reform Party. Whereas I think what you saw in July, many more former Tory seats in Tory heartlands falling to the Liberal Democrats. So I'm not sure, and it remains to be seen, that Kemi Badenoch is necessarily the person to turn that round. What I do know is that the Liberal Democrats will be fighting very hard in their communities to represent their constituents and to keep talking in Parliament about the issues that really matter to voters.
But it might make you nervous, then. It does make you nervous, doesn't it, that she could, in fact, do that? I mean, you'll know that her supporters say that she's a very practical thinker, and if, she's won the leadership now and she knows that the votes from the centre ground of the country, it would make sense that that's where she's going to go.
Like I say, it remains to be seen, and we will certainly be watching carefully. But as I say, we won so many seats off the Tories in July with quite substantial majorities, and we very much plan to be, voices for our constituents in Parliament and talking about the issues that really, really matter to voters. And that's something that we will continue to do in this Parliament.
Are you able to offer, I mean, you know her, don't you? Able to offer any words about what you think her strengths are as to why she may have won the leadership over Robert Jenrick. Sarah?
I think what it is that she is very clear. She is very, you know where you stand with Kemi Badenoch. You know, she's not, and she's a good communicator. She's a good debater. And I think, probably her main strength is that she's really up for the fight. And I'm not surprised that there are a lot of Conservative members out there who felt that that's the quality that they really need right now. Where I think that might lead her into some difficulties is that, you know, that willingness to fight sometimes, you know, makes her come across as perhaps a little bit combative. So I think that, but it's definitely a strength, and channeled in the right way, I'm sure she could be, as I say, an effective opponent to Labour. But I think a lot remains to be seen in terms of the Conservatives' political strategy.
How do you think it's going to change the dynamic in the House of Commons? I'm thinking about PMQs with what you just said in mind.
I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, Keir Starmer's opponents so far across the dispatch box, whether as Prime Minister or Leader of the Opposition, have all been men. Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson before him. So I think that will change the dynamic in itself. But as I say, as I've said earlier, the fact that the Tories are very much responsible for the mess that the country currently finds itself in is going to be a massive handicap for Kemi Badenoch and the Conservative Party for quite some time to come.
All right, Sarah Olney, always good to speak with you. Thanks very much for making the time to speak to us today, Sarah. Good afternoon.